Incredible. So now you're in the mid-level, and I can see now where they use the programming techniques, the different mind control techniques.
Yeah.
We got a minute before the break. Just kind of what our interest about how you, what your specific role was.
Well, they did a lot of what you might call human experimentation, and they had a lot of research protocols going on. So one thing I did was to supervise the research going on. I was teaching the younger trainers and head trainers how to do things more efficiently, how to do their job well, but also reviewing their research reports for errors or problems. Eventually, I became kind of a consultant. If a problem occurred, or if they didn't know how to install something, or if they needed assistance, I would help them with problem solving as well.
Okay, Zvali, I'm going to have to take a break. We'll be back in 3 minutes. We'll continue. One thing I find interesting, Zvali, is, in the media, I'm not going to name names or anything, as I don't have any specific information, but I find it interesting doing some background checks, and a lot of the top media people in our country, they all come from these very wealthy families. And, that's not the typical MO for a journalist. A journalist is somebody, grows up on the street, wants to talk to people. I mean, I can think of Jimmy Breslin, guys who never went to college, didn't know how to type, and just got in there and took their tie off and started writing stories. But, as you look at the media now, these are all these silver spoon kids growing up with silver spoons. I find that quite interesting. How deeply infiltrated, from your knowledge, are they in our media?
Wow. I do know fairly deeply. I remember that when I was in San Diego on Leadership Council during meetings, they would laugh about how people had no idea of how much they were being influenced and didn't even know it. They found that kind of amusing, which is, that's the mindset of people in the group. They're like, the sheep has no idea that they're being led by the moon. And
right.
They find it amusing because they show it as evidence of this. I'm sorry, I'm just describing what they say. I don't agree with it now, but they saw it as evidence of the stupidity of the average person, that they have no idea. I'm not saying that every news story or every newscast story is a member of the group, by no means. But they specifically do teach and train and educate children that show an aptitude for the media, because they want that. And if a person has a bright, charismatic personality and presents well, then that's just that child will go into that if they have the verbal communication and other skills required.
Correct, and that could explain why a lot of our stories really never get covered outside of the influence they have financially and the ownership of the media.
Absolutely not by coincidence.
What's that?
Not at all a coincidence.
Yeah, so that's a good idea why, folks, you're not getting the news from those outlets. We have not only in our government, it explains, a lot of things. Why? Look at the war in Iraq. Look at the evidence there that shows that it was wrong. Look at what they're doing in Iran right now. It's incredible. All this stuff. It's pretty obvious, people. There's something behind it. Zvali is here trying to explain this organization from her knowledge, and it's quite a story. I know this idea, you were involved as a trainer, mind programming. This is just, I'm looking at some of the chapters in a book you have yet to publish. We're talking about brainwave, color control, metal, jewel programming linked to stories and movies. It goes suicidal program. In just a minute here before I break, can you kind of break down what you learned about the importance? We got to take a break, Zvali. Sorry. We're going to do that quickly. Then we'll get back to you. We're talking to Zvali regarding her role as a head trainer in the Illuminati and the American Illuminati. We'll be back on the Republic Broadcasting Network in 2 minutes. Okay, we're back on the Investigative Journal. One more hour, we're talking to Zvali, and she was a head trainer in the Illuminati. Zvali, what type of programming do they actually teach you, and how do you learn these different techniques?
Well, you're taught from childhood on. My training in how to be a programmer was very young. I was mentored by another programmer at the age of 5 by a doctor at George Washington University. And he not only did he do the programming on me, but also taught me how to do it to others. The types of programming, again, that could be a whole 10-hour segment to go into depth. Just briefly, from the time a child's an infant, all through their life, basically, they're tested, they're profiled. The trainers can create a psychological profile, and then they update it frequently. And basically, they're trying to install in the child the ability to obey, loyalty to the group, and the ability to do their job within the group. Now, those jobs vary in complexity. I mean, you may have, on one side, a child trained to be a prostitute. On the other end, you may have a child trained to become a governmental figure, which is a lot more complex programming. But as long as the loyalty to the group is instilled and that's the first and foremost programming always installed, then no matter what their eventual role is, they will remain loyal, and that becomes their first loyalty. Whatever nation, whatever their public role in life is, their first and foremost loyalty will be to the group and to serve its goals. Whether they know, a lot of times the goal there too is to be able to help the child create that complete division between their day role and their night role. So a pleasant, charming, wonderful, kind person in the daytime could be an absolutely cold, ruthless person at night or during the day. You know, it's also during the day they do it. You may have a housewife with children who goes out and completes a courier job for the group, and no one would ever suspect her. This frumpy-looking old housewife with a baby in a car seat is actually carrying some valuable documents. Or, again, I mean, the first and foremost, though, is they want to instill loyalty, and they want to discourage people from questioning orders. They really don't want you questioning that, and they want you to obey their directives. And should people show signs of not doing that, then they go in for tips. Actually, people are being programmed all through their life. We used to call them tune-ups, you know, and it's a lifelong process for members of the group.
So, you know, we have a minute here before our break, and then we'll get back and get in depth in some of these areas. But what went wrong with you? I mean, the dropout rate probably is very low, considering the training. But what went wrong with you? They somehow missed something.
When I was very young, I absolutely believed in the goals of it. You never saw a more loyal group member. I thought that they were saving the world. I thought that we were doing a wonderful thing. But the older I got, I started to see the methods that were being used were so wrong, and that the end did not justify the means. I became increasingly cynical, partly because I saw what I was doing to people. I was lying to them. I was manipulating them. I was telling them things that weren't true. And I remember questioning this, thinking, I was told lies as a child too then. I was manipulated. And finally, you know, things like that, you start to question as an adult the things you believe.
All right, we're gonna take a break, Svali. We'll be back in 3 minutes on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Okay, we're back on the Investigative Journal. Svali, I wanted to ask you a question before we get into how you finally left the group and what happened to you afterwards, your life now. Tell us, you wrote an article, it was kind of interesting, A Day in the Life of a Trainer for the Illuminati. Tell us kind of what you went through in a normal day in your role at the Illuminati. Go ahead.
Okay. Basically, I would get up. At the time that I described in that article, I was teaching at a Christian school. And so I would get up. I would get my 2 children. I dressed, ready for school. Look just like a normal mom, you know, go through the day, come home, you know, we'd have little friends over and play and stuff like that. And then, you know, have dinner. You know, I was a good mom. I was your average American housewife. I mean, on the surface.
Okay.
But underneath the surface, then my husband and I would remind each other on nights when there was a meeting. And then what we would do is when we go to sleep, I had programming in place that would allow me to wake up within 10 minutes of a specified time. So if I knew there was a meeting that night, I would wake up 10 minutes before it was time to, get ready and go. A lot of times we would even go to bed with our clothes on, and I never thought that was abnormal,
Mm-hmm.
I thought everyone went to bed with their clothes on. Didn't even question it, on nights when we had meetings. I thought, oh, it's warmer.
Okay.
And then we'd get up and go and drive to the meeting, and I was also very involved in military in San Diego. In fact, the group has a lot of military orientation, and so a lot of times I would take the kids to their area. There's an area where the kids would go and change. They had a room, and we would have, baskets of clothes, and we'd change our clothing. You'd take out your clothing, it had your name on it, and put on your uniform or whatever you wore that night. And the kids would wear these little miniature military uniforms. And then they would go out and do their training exercises. They were learning how to march, how to shoot. All kids in Illuminati know, at least in that area, know how to take apart a gun, put it together, and shoot with deadly accuracy by the age of 8 years old. Martial arts, there's a lot of martial arts training. Sometimes I help supervise that, or fill in if a military trainer was, because you had to know how to do it. Everyone had to be. There's a lot of cross training, but most of the time I supervised the training. I would be working on implementing programming or what we call tuning up. Reinforcing previously installed programming in adults. At that point, I was normally supervising the younger trainers. They would be doing it, and I would be there watching and making sure they did it correctly. Or else I would be also evaluating whether sometimes every once in a while we'd be working on something that was somewhat experimental, and then I would be taking a more active role assessing the person's responses to the new protocol, recording it, and if there was any difference between established parameters for that protocol or expected responses, I'd be flagging that.
Give me an example of someone that you were working on. How would they be introduced? What would be the reason? Are they in the military? How does someone get sent to you?
No, these were all members of the group.
Oh, okay.
In fact, I can tell you that in San Diego, 20% of the active members of the group were active military.
Okay.
Okay, and think military intelligence, think high-ranking officials, colonels, commanders. My ex-husband was a lieutenant commander in the Navy, getting ready to become a commander, okay?
All right.
These are not stupid people.
So you're basically involved in working on the programming of the members involved, too?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No, we didn't program people that weren't members of the group. You cannot install significantly traumatic mind control programming in a person who is not a member of the group. Now, there are certain, what you can do is what we call passive programming, which is basically through media means. You can set, if someone's watching a television program, they go immediately into alpha state. Everyone in the group, even the baby in the group knows that because these people are very much into behavioral psychology, and that's a trance state almost, a very relaxed state where messages can be implemented. And that's why I very strongly suggest people be very careful about the TV shows they watch. That's all I'll say about that. But no, you cannot take an adult who's not a member of the group and do what we did to them. They would go psychotic or they wouldn't survive it, probably. They wouldn't be able to psychologically handle it.
Tell us some examples of what you were doing, program techniques.
Sometimes it would involve, normally it would start with a hypnotic induction, or even sometimes we'd inject a medication. A lot of times, especially young children, have a lot of fear when they're going into programming, but adults did too. We want them to relax. We'd give them a very short-acting medication to relax them. We would then invoke a hypnotic state in them. We would then, if it's an older person, I'd be checking the codes already installed. If I was getting ready to install programming in it, and like a young child, I would explain to them very patiently exactly the behavior expected. I'd say, I want you to do this and this and this. I'd break it up into steps, and I'd say, first we're going to practice this. I would show the child what I want them to do. I'd model it. I would then tell the child, do it. The child would then do it, okay. But normally they won't do it well the first time, so she or he would get shot. That was called, because the group very much uses what they call positive and negative reinforcement. Okay, if the child did not do it perfectly the first time, they're shocked. That's the negative reinforcement. Then I'd say, do it again. They would show me the behavior. Now, at this point, we start associating the behavior with an external stimulus or cue, too. Now, a lot of times the child is, if this is a behavior, though, that we want associated with a specific code, the child will often been traumatized very heavily first to create a fragmentation in their personality. And then the behavior and the associated cue are given. Like, you might hear a tone like, bing, bing, bing. All right, I want you to do this. Bing, bing, bing. The child hears the tone, they get up, and they do the behavior. Once they can perform it perfectly, they're rewarded with praise, good job, or a hug. Children like hugs or something like that. Then you do it over and over and over. That's why trainers have to be very patient people. Because then maybe after the child's done it 50 times, then they hear the cue, they get up, they do it. It's not even a conscious, it's reflexive. At that point, it's considered installed. For very, very important programming, I'm talking about like N-level assassin programming, because we did train people how to assassinate people, and that's a whole other topic that I don't want to go into here.
Okay.
We would then do a ritual to seal the programming afterwards. Okay.
You know something, I was just looking at some of your articles. One was Christmas in the cult, just to get off on a different subject here.
Sure.
And you say this is quite different for you when you were growing up than it is for most children. Can you just kind of briefly tell us what you meant by that?
Yeah, I mean, we had trees and presents and things like that, but for most children, Christmas is just happy time, lots of presents. But in the group, some very high ceremonies that are celebrated. Several times, many times, I flew to Germany, and there was no Santa Claus. They had a figure called Father Yule, who represents Christmas there, but he is not the kind of benevolent Santa that you see here. This is a man with a golden scepter, dressed in a white robe and a golden sash around. And I was once at the German father's house where there was a gathering of children and adults, and Father Yule was present, and he raises the scepter and basically strikes down the child in front of everyone.
Oh, my God.
I know.
Strikes down the child?
Yes, he struck down the child with his scepter, and that is not what you call a happy Christmas, No. Now, at the same time, yes, we did have tree, and fruitcake and all that, and decorate the house, but there's another side to Christmas.
I'm just listening, and I just can't believe, we got leaders in our country that have probably gone through this kind of stuff. I mean, it's just incredible, this group. I mean, I know they've been around for a long, long time, thousands of years, and came here. George Washington was a 33rd degree Mason, and we go on. The question, I want you to understand just from my point of view, I just wonder how, you write a story at the end of the Illuminati. How do we get rid of these people? I know you're out of it. You couldn't take it anymore, but do you think we can inspire more mid-level people to just leave like you, so they have no one to do this kind of insidious, crazy programming and lifestyle? What do you think?
Well, I believe that as strongly as a Christian, that it's a spiritual warfare as well as a emotional and psychological warfare. I believe that by the grace of God. But I will also say that when I was in the group, a lot of the members are not happy. You will have people in the group that are there because they love it, because they believe in the goals, they're totally dedicated. But to be honest, I also knew as many people who would have left in a minute if they thought that they could get out and make it. And
about your husband, just to break in, then go back to that. Do they marry you to somebody in the group, or is that forced on you?
No, in the group, the marriages are always arranged. In my experience, in my 38 years in the group, I never knew of a couple in the Illuminati that did not have an arranged marriage. It's
Let me just mention a couple that I suspect: Clinton and Bill and Hillary.
Oh well, yeah. Yes, definite.
Yes,
and
Bill. Go ahead.
Yeah. And a lot of times these marriages are arranged for compatibility, but also for bloodlines, to bring the right bloodlines together.
Okay, good.